So what do you do when your child is acting out? Hitting, throwing things, being just angry and expressing anger through, physical means, throwing things, pinching, pulling, biting, scratching, hitting, all of those things that, just exhibit that the child is angry. Well, anger is always a result of a perceived injustice. And this is true in children and adults. You get angry when you feel like you have been wronged in some way, that in some way you've been treated unjustly. So you can also get upset when you see things with other people being treated unjustly. But if you feel like your needs are not being met, you're not being treated justly, like there's an injustice, my needs are not being met, in fact, my needs are being withheld, then as a child, the only way they know how to express that is through anger, because that's what it produces in them. It's an automatic chemical reaction in the body. So you get angry when things are not the way they should be. Well, in small children, to them, a desire is the same thing as a need. So if they want something and you tell them they can't have it, well, first of all, that want, that desire is a need to them. So when you tell them that they can't have what they want, you're basically saying you can't have what you need. So that's to them perceiving that as injustice. I'm not getting what I need. I want that piece of candy. And as far as a small child is concerned, they need it. They don't know the difference between needing air to breathe and needing that new shiny toy they saw in the store today. It's the same thing. So they're not developed and mature enough to understand the difference there between wants and needs. So, but when a child's needs are met, then they stop acting out. So, in this case, when kids want things that you cannot or will not give them for whatever reason, for example, the piece of candy they see in the store, or a toy that another child is playing with right now, you can't take the toy away from another child and give it to them. You can't give them candy every time they want it. And you know that. You know it's not for their good. But first of all, don't try to explain to the child why they can't have it, because small children, in fact, until age 13, the logic reasoning part of the brain doesn't even start to develop. And that's why in the Hebrew culture, that a child was not held accountable for his behavior until he went through his bar mitzvah at age 13. Or for girls, it's age 12, which is interesting because those ages generally correspond to puberty. And during puberty, there's chemicals released in the brain that cause that part of the brain to come online. And so Dr. Paul Hegstrom, who wrote Broken Children, Grown Up Pain, says, and he's a Christian psychiatrist, psychologist, that small children lack the chemicals in the brain to see the big picture and make thought out choices. So they're mostly impulsive and reactive, and when they want something, they don't understand, and you cannot reason with them. So stop wasting your breath and wearing yourself out. Why don't you understand you can't have candy now? Because my brain can't understand it. So once again, don't waste your breath. But what you can do, and what the child does need all the time, this need is constant all through life, no matter what age you are, no matter what stage of brain development you're in. So small children who are still in just living out of that amygdala part of the brain, which is the lowest, most impulsive fight or flight part of the brain, slowest brain waves, no real thinking going on, still have this need, as well as fully mature adults. Why? Because it's a heart need. And that need is the need to be heard, to be understood, and to be supported. So what that looks like in small children is when they ask for something, even though you can't give them the thing they want, you can still give them what they actually need, which is to be heard, to be supported, to be understood. So when they say they want that candy, you come alongside them and you acknowledge that desire as valid. You validate it. Oh yes, that candy looks yummy. You're just acknowledging, you're letting them know that you understand and acknowledge their desire and that it's valid. You don't punish them for having a desire. Even though you can't grant that wish, you can still honor the desire or give value. Honor means to give value. When a coupon is honored, it now has value. So when you honor your child's emotions, you're saying, or their desires, you're saying, yeah, your desires have value. In fact, they're as important to your child as yours are to you. Think about it. If your spouse said to you, when you verbalized something you desired, like, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could go on that, exotic vacation? And your spouse says, you can't have that. You can't have that. Or better than that. I mean, that's just ridiculous. We are not treating our children the way we want to be treated, which is the most basic rule of Christianity, is to treat others, love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, that's how we show that we're Christians. But for some reason, we exempt our children from the greatest commandment of loving others as we love ourselves. So if you're treating your child in a way that you don't want to be treated, something's off. Okay? And it's because we've been focused on behavior, we've forgotten that people are not their behavior. Behaviors are just a symptom of what's going on inside the real person. So when you honor your child's desire, you empathize and you agree, yeah, that looks good. Oh yeah, you want that toy? If they want something another child has, then that's a perfect moment to teach them how to get it. Socially acceptable ways to get their needs met. And so these small, which we think are just insignificant little childish incidences, are actually extremely important opportunities for parents to begin teaching their children how to get their needs met in healthy ways, learning that they have value and worth by treating their desires with value and honor, and showing them how to, work out conflicts and resolve conflicts. And these are things they can learn when they're little bitty. So because all of that goes straight into their subconscious mind when they're small, and it becomes the automatic programming that they'll use for the rest of their life. So in that situation, when you acknowledge, oh yes, wanting that, yeah, I see why you want that, basically. Yeah, that looks great. Well, can I have it? And you say, well, we can't get it this time, it may be next time. Or you can have the candy after dinner. So what you want to, there's some things you want to be careful you don't do. Don't say, oh, that looks yummy, but. Because when you say but, it negates everything you said before it. That's for anything. If you say, yeah, that's a great idea, but you're saying it's not a great idea. There's flaws in it, and I'm going to tell you what they are now, right? So when you're talking to your child and you're coming alongside, you're showing him, instead of going head to head, and he says, I want the candy, and you say you can't have it, it becomes this battle of the wills, and then you overpower your child. And then what does he learn from that? A lot of bad things. He learns that his desires are not valid, that nobody's listening, that he's on his own, he has to get his needs met, and it throws their little brains into fight or flight. And that's very dangerous for a lot of reasons, physically, emotionally, and the long-term effects of that simple, just telling a child they can't have something. Instead of overpowering, we can empower them by coming up under them, by supporting their desires, by showing them that their desires are important, because here's why desire is important. And you want to fuel that desire without granting the wish. And you can do that. You can show him that his desire is valid without granting what he wants. And because when you do that, he's actually getting what he really needs, which is that emotional support, feeling safe, feeling like someone's on his side, feeling that someone understands his perceived needs and is going to watch out for him. But you don't want to explain with logic why they can't have it. Just leave that part out. You don't want to, what was the other thing I was going to say? That's the main thing. Oh, don't say but. Just come alongside and acknowledge and leave it open-ended. Oh yeah, that candy looks yummy. Don't say another word. And if he says, well, can I have it? You say, well, we can have a piece after dinner, or maybe next time. And when you preempt basically you're not giving it to him with that acknowledgement that their desire is valid, well, that's 90% of what we all need. When we feel safe, protected, heard, and understood, then the things don't matter so much because our person, our heart is safe with this person, this parent who understands our needs. And we know that we can leave those desires in our parents' hands when they show that they understand us, they empathize, and they have our best interests at heart. So, but in a situation where it involves another child and they perhaps they've grabbed a toy that they wanted from another child, and you come in and you say, okay, let's let Susie have this toy and let's ask for a turn. Oh, when we want a toy, we ask. When we want something from someone else, we ask. And you gently guide them through that process, and you're training them how to get their needs met in healthy ways they don't know. So instead of punishing them for not knowing, you simply train them. Okay, Johnny, let's ask Susie for a turn. And then there's another whole process. I'm not going to go into this video because it'll get too long. It's another topic of how to train your children to resolve conflict on their own, to problem solve, and come to mutually agreed conflict resolution solutions when they're preschoolers. I saw this when I worked in a preschool about 30 some years, almost 35 years ago. And I learned this from the director, that we would teach the kids to resolve their own conflicts. And if they got into a conflict, we would just remind them, what's the problem? And they would, right away go into the process we taught them. But we didn't punish them for, wanting something. There's nothing wrong with that. We want things all day long. And wanting things or desire is the fuel for all human endeavor. And that's why you don't want to squash your child's desire. You want to honor the desire without granting the wish by empathizing and acknowledging and honoring that desire that they're expressing. So when we don't do that, it creates anger. It feels like an injustice to them. And then they act out because they're trying to be heard. They feel like they're not being heard. And so then the acting out comes into play, and they get angry because they feel like no one's hearing me, my needs. My needs are not being met, because once again, small children don't know the difference between a need and a want. So I hope this is helpful and helps you understand why your child's acting out and what you can do to prevent that, and also what to do if it happens. So until next time, take care. God bless.